Welcome back to the 9th dev blog on Global Gambit. This bit we are just going to tidy up a few bits and bobs on all the stuff we've done so far. Okay, so first of all we're just going to show you where we got up to in video 8. So if we run it, okay, so we have a map. We can click on different regions to find out about stuff. We can see who controls different regions. We can control a tank and we can move it and capture regions. So here we go, we've got tank here capturing bits of regions for France, and you can see that when you click on those regions now it says who the nation is. There is currently no restrictions on where the tank can go, so that means it can go over the ocean and stuff, and it's also not kind of linked to the timer. We also don't have many nations actually set up at this stage. France, Germany and United Kingdom are obvious, but we need to do others. So we're going to decide colours for nations today. We're going to set up what nations I want as playable, and we are going to have selectable ring on our army so we know when we've got them selected. We're going to show army ownership so we know who owns which army, and then we are going to deploy initial armies for all of those playable nations so we know where the armies are. So first of all, I had to come up with a list of playable nations and decide what colours each nation's going to be. So I made a little Word document, went through Photoshop, and then basically just picked some random colours for each nation. I tried to have some sort of meaning for each colour. So in our nation manager that we set up in video 6, we're going to put all those nations in. So this is pretty time consuming, but we need to ensure we have a variable that's going to store the nation, stores the nation name, the regions that nation has, and the color itself. As you can see, I've done this now with all the playable nations that I had in that Word document. I went through and double checked that each region belongs to that nation. And as you can see, we've got this last one here that says independent nations. So I don't want too many countries running around the map. So basically any spare regions I've just stuck as its own kind of independent thing. So if we run it now, you can see anything that's independent is grey, but all of the bigger nations are now color coded. So we've got Canada as red, we've got United States as blue, we've got Mexico there as green. Brazil's pretty big, so I made that nice and green. Okay, so that's kind of Russia over there, but I did notice that when I made Russia, I got this random green bit over there. First of all, what region is causing that? So there's two ways we can do it. We can click on it and make it go white, or I can make it go blue, and then it'll be obvious which region is causing that particular bit. So you can see it's white at the moment because I got it selected. But just to double check, a little bit of testing. If we move the tank over that particular region, it should go blue. Yeah, so I've got some extra pixels there that I need to delete. So that's more of a graphic glitch than it is a coding glitch. Now, while I'm fixing those little glitches, there was something that was suggested many videos ago. So let's try and fix the texture for that as well then. So let's see if that makes a difference and make it look a little bit better. Okay, so this is where we are at this stage. I've made the sea blue. And okay, I'll give you that. It does look a little bit better now. And we can still move our tank around and we can still capture regions. And the region that was causing the problems in Russia, if I go take that particular region, it wasn't that one, it was that one, Okay, yep, you'll notice it's no longer showing those extra pixels over there. We've decided colours for nations, we've made the sea blue, we set up initial playable nations, we set up independent nations, so now we need to add a selectable ring on army so we know we've got the army actually selected. What we're going to do is we're going to copy the select ring and we are going to rename that to hover ring. So it's a very simple sprite 2D, and the idea is that we'll have this behind select ring, so when you click it, this extra bit of texture will show. Now, we want the visibility for this to be off to begin with. So over there, we'll just set visibility off. And in our click area node, we are just going to set up basically mouse exit and mouse entered. And then we're going to be able to link that into our code. Now, in addition to this, we are going to need a sprite that is going to show up when you mouse over this particular vehicle. So I've loaded up the old sprite and I'm going to delete this. And I'm just going to draw out a white circle. Now I did think I could maybe use the polygon lasso tool for this, but it probably makes more sense that I just use the shape tool in Photoshop. Now we don't want a perfect circle. I'm so used to doing that by default. We just want to drag it so it's, yeah, there we go, that's what we want. And then we'll just give it an appropriate name. Okay, so now that we're happy with our little texture circle, we're going to stick it on the Sprite 2D as a texture. You may notice that I've set the I was playing around with the modulate colors a little bit. But yeah, there's a texture, and if you want to change its size, you can also do it in that little inspector window as well. Now, in the army.gd, we're just going to set up a little variable here that basically enables the node. And all we're going to do is on click mouse area, we're going to have it set to visible. And when it's off, we're going to set it to false. Now, because obviously we've got the highlights as well, we just need to make sure that the ordering is above everything, because don't forget, we've got our texture, and then what's happening is that the highlights are then popping up on top, and then the ownership is popping on top of that. So anything that happens before that will be underneath some images. And okay, it's kind of working. So the problem I've got now is that I may have scaled it a little too big. Okay, so it's because I set the scale to 60. So I'm just going to change the scale to 1, and I've changed the modulate back to white because I didn't need it to be nice and brown. So you'll notice underneath visibility, I've set the color back to white. And there we go. And, well, I mean, it's working. Yeah, okay, so as we've got time, we're going to do a bonus objective. We're going to try and swap the PNG method for a different method, whether it's lighting or polygons. So instead of using a sprite 2D, this time we're going to use something called light 2D. Now, light 2D has two things in Go.4, so we're going to use point light 2D to basically shine a light on whatever we hover instead of using the hover ring. Now, if you like the hover ring, by all means keep it. You don't need to do what I'm about to do. This is just me trying out a different method to see how this will look. So with the point light 2D, you can still load up a texture. So I'm going to use the same texture as before. And you can change the colors and stuff. I'm kind of leaving everything as default, but I am going to make sure visibility is off again. So this is our code now. So I've kept the hover ring code there for the moment, but if this works, I'm going to delete it. And we're on our function select and deselect. I've just got glow light visible set to true and glow light visible set to visibility set to false. And I'm just going to hashtag out the hover ring code because we don't need it for the moment. Right, now if I run this, okay, that actually does look a little bit better. It's not a solid thing, and I noticed that we've got 2 corners on that light. I reckon we can modify that a little bit. I'll probably do it at a later date, but it does look better than just having a solid picture behind it. Now you'll notice that with the tank selected, the regions are still highlighted, which makes it a little bit more difficult to see what's going on. So I think our bonus objective is complete, but we should also stop showing the selected regions when we're controlling a tank. We don't need it to go white when we're focusing on moving armies. So in the main, we are just going to add this one line of code. So when you do a right mouse button click, we're going to fade out highlights. Okay, so let's test this and check it works. Okay, so we've got a region. Notice it's still highlighted. I click on the tank and the region's no longer highlighted. That looks so much better. Okay, so stop showing selected regions. Done. Right, now we need to show army ownership. So going back into the army GD, we are going to add this nation color as default white, okay? And in the armies manager, we are basically going to add this block of code here, and you'll notice that we've added army.nationColor to it as well. Now for this to show, it needs to be on some white pixels. At the moment our tank is completely black, so we are essentially going to just put a small modulation on it, but for it to show we need it to be quite light. So I'm going to go back in and we're going to edit this pixel of a tank and just add in some white areas that could show the nation ownership of that tank. So we're just going to make the top bit nice and white. So if it's France, it'll go blue. If it's the United Kingdom, it'll go red. Okay, so we've got 3 areas here that can show a nation color on it when we are looking at the main map. Okay, so now that I'm finished, I'm just going to resave it. This time, instead of tank size 20, I'm just going to call it tank resize color. And now to get that new color tank texture in, we're just going to change the texture to the color tank. And there we go. It's not a transparent tank, it is generally just modulated blue on certain bits. Okay, so that's another objective done. We've shown army ownership, and probably useful that we are able to deselect the army. Right clicking will make the army move, so what we need to do is on left click, deselect it. So in the main, under the mouse button left, we just added this variable and some for loops. Okay, so if we run that really quickly, so we can right click to select, right click to move, and if I left click anywhere, the tank is deselected. Okay, so we are now able to deselect an army. Right, so that leaves us with our last objective, of spawning initial armies for everyone. So in the main GD, I'm going to make this dirty and quick, but essentially it's going to go around and check all of the nations and look for the first region in the nation manager to deploy a tank in it. And if we run it now, boom, we've got all starter nations with a starter army. And all of them are color coded. And at the moment, I can actually click on any of the armies. And at the moment, I can click on any of the armies, but we'll ignore that a little bit for the moment. We're still on the setup stage, but you can see that each nation has kind of got a setup army in place. We do have a random army in the middle of the sea, and that'll be something I'll deal with later. It's color-coded, so it should be pretty obvious which nation it is. But for today, I think that is gonna be it. That's a lot of stuff we've done. So thank you for watching. Feel free to leave any comments and like and subscribe if you thought it was useful. Right, anyway, I will see you next time. Bye.